Like that I'm recording from my new studio today.
Yeah, it does look really nice. I was gonna say.
Yeah, did a lot of design work in here, getting the LEDs, the paneling.
I'm impressed.
Somehow weirdly setting up my computer in the middle of the room. So, we do what we can. Those speakers are my favorite part. They're overbearing sometimes. It's so loud in this room.
Yeah. uh,
Oh man.
oh shit! You know what we haven't talked about?
What?
The fact that CJ Stroud is going to absolutely destroy the passing yardage record. Like, I think he could go for 6.
There's a chance, man. I
Like, he could
mean,
totally go for 6.
Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell.
Wild.
You got
How do
Joe
you
Mixon
stop
who
that
can
with
catch out of the
Mixon in the
backfield.
backfield too, and a good tight end? Like, how does anyone play defense? What do you do?
You gotta
Do you
rattle
shut down
CJ.
the? Yeah, I guess.
That's what you gotta do.
But like, and if you're the Texans and a good offensive coordinator, then you lean into the run if a team's
Mm-hmm.
starting to get to you because you got Mixon now, and then
I
oh
couldn't
man,
believe it. If I was Josh Allen,
like
I would be openly weeping.
true. You know what I gotta say? Love it for the Texans organization after
Yeah.
the way they had to part with Deshaun and then bringing in D'Amico, like starting over. Everybody thinks they're fully rebuilding, and then they just went from 0 to a contender for the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, for a while to come.
It's really great to see for them.
Yeah, I'm rooting for them. Like if it can't be the Eagles at any point, then I will be rooting for the Texans.
They're the AFC team I'm choosing to root for now.
Yeah.
Yeah, outside of Philly sports teams, I usually have one team from each.
And I like that there's a
sport.
team that like, because generally that means, okay, who has a chance who's never won anything before?
Yes.
And
that is always fun.
Definitely rooting for that. It's exciting.
After a couple years of being putting the Bills in that slot, I can only fucking imagine being an actual Bills fan.
No, can't do it.
The fatigue of just rooting for them in like a precursory way was too much. I was like, no, like, sorry, Buffalo.
Yeah.
My boss is a Bills fan. I literally told him that. I was like, I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, that's rough.
It's like, you must be the most patient man in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But again, that maybe is why they jump through tables, because they need to feel something.
Yeah. I mean, does CJ go number 1 overall in the draft this year? I would take him if I have the number 1 pick. Yeah, you get it every year. But if I was to get it, which I don't want it, to be clear, because I don't like the first overall pick. But if I get it, I mean, unless something
it's hard
changes,
to not pick
I'm
him.
taking Stroud.
Yeah, it's hard to not pick him, especially after what he did.
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking him.
Yeah, like he was so good. No gumbo today, huh?
At least not for right now. I don't think I have anything in here. It was kind of I don't even have a beverage. It was thrown together.
No apple
juice.
Like,
lesson ran late. Had to see Jackie before she left for work because I was out all day, and then came home just in time for my lesson. She was napping when I got home. Like,
yeah,
literally didn't see her face.
I get it.
So,
all right. It's gonna be bold, Nick, but what if we just started?
No.
Okay, yeah, let's not do it then.
Yeah, I don't want
to. No, it's fine. That's fine. So, are you ready for Saturday then?
No.
We'll be fine. Sarah did ask if we could stay away from like the cheesy shit. By that she means like no Sweet Caroline and shit. Like she's not.
Thank fucking Christ.
Yeah, like she's not. She just wants us to play like our normal classic rock set. Like we can throw in a couple originals probably. Like
okay. Yeah, that's fine. Whatever.
She's chill about it. She just doesn't want like. She doesn't care about that. I figured you would like that.
Speaking my language, so
of course it's speaking my language as well. So, I don't mind disappointing the crowd at the whim of the bride. That's great.
Whatever.
All right.
You know what's very interesting?
What?
When you start to type Jane's addiction into Wikipedia, List of Daria episodes is the first thing that came up for me.
Interesting. I think the craziest part about Jane's addiction for me is that Perry Farrell, who named the band after heroin and did heroin for years. And in fact, like the reason the band broke up is because half the band really liked to do heroin and half the band didn't. He still looks incredible at 65.
Looks a lot better than Shannon Hoon.
Well, yeah, probably.
Yeah, it's true. I can't verify. I trust.
Yeah.
But I can't verify.
That's a great point.
I think that's what they say. Trust, but you just can't verify.
You just can't verify.
You just can't do it.
It's impossible.
Why even bring it up?
I didn't.
Oh, you know what? I finished my Miles Davis autobiography, and remember how there was a what's it called in it? That old concert bill from Berkeley. I also found the 1998-1999 Celtics schedule.
Oh my gosh. So you're going to burn the whole book?
Yeah, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just explaining to somebody the three sports that I care about. I did mention the Flyers, but the rivalries, because his wife is a Braves fan. And I was like, he was he was talking a little bit, hey Keith, you know who I'm talking about. He was talking a little bit of shit about the Braves winning the first series. And I was just like, I'd rather win in October, like we've been doing, than win in April.
Yeah.
And he didn't understand. Like he was like, Philly fans, like when I watched the Braves games, I'm like, yeah, but they're like really obnoxious. And I'm like, yeah, but you have to understand the rival, like that's like Eagles Cowboys. He's like, oh, is it? And I was like, yeah, like we hate each other.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We hate each other. It's like the Braves and the Mets. We hate both of them.
Yep.
And that's just what it is.
It's interesting because I feel like hockey actually lends itself to like the most hatred. Like in hockey, you just hate everybody in your conference.
Yeah.
Like I hate the Pens, I hate the Devils, I hate the Rangers, I hate Boston, I hate all of them.
Most
hate
Boston
them all.
Teams I don't like.
Toronto, fuck them all. Because hockey shit gets real right away. It's like, oh yeah, the last time we played these guys, they dropped the glove 6 times. Well, skated over the neck of our goalie.
That's kind of what it is for hockey, because in hockey, if you don't like each other, you can punch them in the face.
Shit out of each other, and that only incites things further.
Yeah. Whereas if you don't like each other in baseball, the best you can do is like have your benches cleared. Everyone just kind of looks at each other menacingly and then walks away.
Yeah. Very true. It's funny that that's like the one professional sport that has been like, yeah, I mean, if you're going to fight in the middle of the game, go ahead. Just beat the shit out of each other. Just punch each other in the face. No gloves. Just like...
Well, think about it this way. Think about it logically. If you want to prevent bruising, what do you typically put on your body? You put ice. They're on ice already.
Okay.
So like if you like are punching and you just put their face down on the ice and they'll be fine the next day.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. Just don't do what that guy in the UK did and kick a dude in the neck with your skate and kill him.
That's like the main reason I'm afraid of ice skates.
Because they're
like
just
skating
blades.
With anyone.
They're just like
knives. Just blades that come with the full weight of the person, like fully pressing down on them.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
Generally, a very sharp set of blades with the full weight of a human person pushing them down on you is not ideal.
I'm going to take your word for it.
I've also never done it. I trust,
I've never.
But again, I have not verified.
Well, that's not one you can't verify, just one you haven't verified.
Right, I could verify.
Yeah. Once.
Yeah, once.
And that's probably it.
Yeah. Yeah, we should probably come up with like a hand signal that I should make, depending on whether or not that's bad.
Yeah, please let us know. Well, we'll come visit you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll come. I mean,
at in the graveyard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully, you'll haunt us from beyond and let us know the answer.
If I'm able.
I mean, what else are you doing, dude? You're gonna be pretty bored.
Yeah, I guess so.
You're not even 27 anymore, so it's just a waste at this point. Unless you want to start like the 37 club.
Yeah, that's true. Trust, but verify.
All right, let's get rolling on this.
Yeah. What are we waiting for?
We were waiting. I don't know. You said you didn't
I
want to
think
start.
it was something about Keith.
Yeah, it was Keith's fault.
Okay,
Always Keith's fault. I am ready.
3, 2, 1.
All I can say is that my podcast's pretty plain. We call it TotemTalks because that's its name. That's its name.
There we go. I was hoping you would get to that part. Okay.
What's up, everybody? That honestly, that might have been one of the best ones we've ever done.
Yeah.
Okay. What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Totem Talks. We're on season 7, episode 15. Now, that's what I call the 90s.
Yeah. Which, there was one of these records that was made a little earlier than I thought.
That's true.
In retrospect.
I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I was a bit surprised because I think of the 90s when I think of these bands, but we'll get more into that later. The first real important thing to talk about is that you're Nick and I'm Pat.
Okay.
And this is Totem Talks.
Sure.
And we are on a never-ending quest, a journey, an epic, if you will.
I think that's fair.
To determine the greatest musical artists of all time. Whether it's a person, whether it's a band, whether it's something in between. And the age-old question that I'll ask every week for the rest of our lives is, did we find that today?
Maybe.
Maybe. And you know what?
I'm not going to give anything else away.
Honestly, you know you're in for a true episode of this podcast when I don't
just go, no.
Yeah, no. So, hey, you know what? I'm excited for it. I want to thank you all for tuning in. I want to thank you for hanging out each and every week with us. Do us a favor. Just tell one person. I just anybody. Just please, anybody.
Anyone.
We need you to tell people about us. It's really important.
Yeah, real important.
It's the most important, honestly.
It's an existential crisis.
Nick, I think everything about this podcast has been an existential crisis, including its creation.
Yeah.
Just because it was like mid-COVID and we were like, we need to do something.
Yeah, doing things is good. It's a lot better than that.
It's certainly better than not doing things. But speaking of doing things, Nick, can you do me a favor?
Yes.
Can you tell us who we're covering today? Because I completely forgot.
Oh, no problem. So we're actually kicking things off with Jane's Addiction. Spoiler alert, it was heroin. And we are following that up with a Blind Melon.
Yes, as hinted at by our wonderful intro.
That's right.
Cool. So I guess I'll get us started then.
Yeah, why don't you?
Mine as well. So Jane's Addiction. Jane's Addiction is an American rock band from Los Angeles, California. They were formed in 1985, and this band has been, in a word, tumultuous. 85 to 91, they broke up. Back in 97, broke up a little bit again. Just a quick reunion, 97. 2001 to 2004, broke up. And then 2008 to the present day,
All right.
They so far looking good for the longest tenure of this band continuously.
You got to appreciate that.
It's true. It's true. Congrats to them for sticking through it. We covered 3 albums by Jane's Addiction. We started with Nothing's Shocking, which came out in 1988, which I'll tell you was a little shocking.
It was a little shocking. I would have thought it was like 90.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's 2 years.
Right. Then we followed it up with 1990's release, Ritual de lo Habitual.
Right.
And then we closed it out with The Great Escape Artist, which came out in 2011. And I'll tell you, there is a TBA apparently scheduled for release in 2024.
Interesting. Okay.
So we did not get to that one. If you future listeners are like, but this came out in 2024 and so did that album. What's wrong? Well, timing.
I guess so.
All right. Well, I guess as this is my group, I'll get started with Nothing Shocking. And ironically, kind of nothing was shocking. I mean, other than the year it came out. This band, is famous for a few different songs, but Jane Says is the big one, and that's on this album. And I think you get a good mix of what this group does and does well. You get the really high vocal from Perry Farrell.
Yeah, very.
He's got a very I don't want to say whiny voice.
Yeah, but you could, and I would understand
could
what
say
you mean.
whiny. Like, I don't mean it in a way where it's like whiny bad, because I don't think he's got a bad voice.
I don't think so.
But it definitely is like a very high, tinny voice. But I think it was really good. I was a little surprised. I knew Dave Navarro was in Jane's Addiction. I, for some reason, just didn't picture him in it from the beginning.
Oh, interesting.
I knew he did. I thought he didn't join till after his stint in Red Hot Chili Peppers.
No, that's where he got picked off from.
Right. And that it all kind of came together for me. I also was surprised to see Flea on the trumpet.
Record? Yeah, who does
on this record?
Not me.
Yeah, just a fascinating development. But I thought this was a good record. It's definitely clear that it's like the infancy of the alt rock scene here.
Right.
They're doing a lot of things that would be considered alternative rock, but not enough that it's clearly alt rock, which is typical for a band that kind of creates a new genre. The first thing they do in that genre is pulling from a lot of different other areas. But I think they did it well. I really liked the playing on this. It felt extremely full to me, which I think not a lot of bands in this time were doing. Even, this is a lot of musicians playing on this, which makes sense for why it felt so full to me. But I really enjoyed it for a genre of music that's not typically my favorite, we'll say.
Okay.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this album as well. I thought a lot of it was new to me. Jane Says is obviously like an all-time classic of the alternative rock genre. One of the best 2-chord songs that's ever been written. And Mountain Song was the other one that I was a little bit familiar with on this record. But you definitely get the impression this is a group that's not really afraid to be experimental, that wants to do something that feels authentic to them and is not like chasing a different sound. They're very much creating what sounds like Jane's Addiction here, right off the bat. And it almost feels like a little bit older schoolish. You can hear that maybe there's some influence of like the original real heavy rock proto metal groups in there, but not to the point where they can't pull out a song that like goes fully acoustic, like Jane Says. So I think all in all, really cool. Oh, and then like you get horn section. You mentioned the trumpet and Flea.
Yeah.
Idiot's Rule. Like that kind of threw me for. I was like, oh, I did not expect to hear a song that sounded like this at all from this group. And then they pull it off like pretty well. And I'm like, okay. I definitely coming out of this album with more like and respect for Jane's Addiction than I had going in, because I just was only familiar with the bare minimum. And Ritual de lo Habitual starts on the next big Jane's Addiction song that I knew, which is Stop.
Stop.
That was on one of the Guitar Hero games or something, right?
Absolutely. I knew it way too well for it to not be on something.
Okay. I was pretty sure it was on one of those. But it's a really cool song. I think they're continuing in the song to define their distinct sound. Like this, both of these records, they're not the same as each other, but they both definitively sound to me like Jane's Addiction. I think what I really like about a few of the songs on this record is for a heavier alternative band most of the time. There's a lot of groove in their playing, like there's a lot of feel, there's a lot of groove, there's, an underlying soupçon of funkiness behind everything, which is kind of cool. You do not hear that from every group that plays this style. There's a good range of different sounding songs. I really like the song, of course, had like a very interesting instrumentation and that like 3/4 waltzy feeling going on. But again, another album that surprised me in a good way.
Yeah, and listen, I agree with what you're saying. Before I get into my review, I just want to say it was in fact on Guitar Hero 2.
Okay, there you
and it was featured as a DLC in Rock Band 4.
Okay.
I played one of those.
Okay.
Well, I didn't play Rock Band 4.
I didn't either.
But I think I definitely played Rock Band. Ironically, my first ever band was a Rock Band with my two friends and in growing up in Northeast Philly. And we were very adamant that we could be a real band. And my one friend Tim bought an actual drum kit and like said he was going to learn how to play drums. My other friend was like, I'm going to learn how to play guitar. Never learned either one.
Yeah, go figure.
I held up my end of the bargain. I said, I'll sing. I said, I'll sing.
You would have been available for that.
Yeah. So, Timmy and Kyle, if you ever see this,
slacking,
just know that I'm ready to get the band back together. It'll be my side project from Low Totem. My old neighborhood band from Rock Band. Hell, I'd be down to do it in Rock Band again. Why not? Sure. It's fun.
What? Yeah, it is.
But anyway, back to Ritual de lo Habitual. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. The one thing that I noticed almost immediately was the sound felt so much more Jane's Addiction the whole way through, which I really thought was good. They, like I said on the first album, they were in the alt rock space that I know now,
right?
But obviously they were kind of pioneering it a little bit. And I think that by this album, just a couple years later, it's pretty firm where they are and how they're doing it. And it feels very alt-rocky, even more so, and very consistent all the way through. And I really enjoyed it. I think Perry Farrell's voice is going to be divisive.
Yeah, definitely.
Which I think... I really do think that
helps with the band's career.
Yeah, and I really do think that like a band who does a lot well, there's really two different singing types. If you're gonna get a really good lead singer, you can either get a lead singer who does everything really well and is like the jack of all trades, just top-notch vocalist, or get a singer whose voice is so unique,
super unique, yeah,
and divisive that people constantly talk about it. And a lot of people love the way it sounds, and a lot of people hate the way it sounds. And that's just what it is. I think those are the two keys to vocalist success in bands. Now, I think you can be a good band and have like an okay vocalist.
We've listened to a lot of them.
We've listened to a lot of them where it's like, I don't think the singer's all that good, but the band is great, and I think it makes sense. But I think he definitely falls into that divisive category. But I think he does pretty well here. Like, I don't have anything against his voice. I thought that for this album again, they did a lot of movement here. So there's like some string sections, there's piano on a few of these. The one song that I was a little there was like a spoken word part in Stop, and I liked that. And then they do it again in the next album, and I didn't like it. But I think this album was pretty clearly the peak of creativity that I heard in this band so far.
Yeah.
Does it continue? So we'll go to the Great Escape Artist. And this album, while not bad, and I think they did all the things that they had previously done still well, felt a little bit more flat to me than I wanted it to feel. And I don't know why. Sometimes that just happens. I think it's part of the fact that this is a group that pioneered or was part of the group that part of the movement of the alt rock scene in the late 80s and early 90s. And now we're in the 2010s decade and they're still doing alt rock, but they're just in alt rock now. It doesn't feel like they're moving anything forward again with their creativity. Yeah. So like it's hard to fault somebody for continuing on with something that they helped create, but I would have hoped to get a little bit more like influence or movement in a new direction. I think that would have been awesome. And I'm hopeful that maybe they do think to do that in their new album that comes out sometime this year.
Right.
But this album, I believe it's Words Right Out of My Mouth. I think it's the last tune on this album. Like the beginning of it is just like this really, like, I don't mean deep vocally, I mean like deep spiritually, like phrasing, and then it goes into the song, and it just completely swing and a miss for me.
That kind of thing's always a swing and a miss for me.
Yeah, I was just like, oh man, it just felt tacky, and it's the first time this band felt tacky, even though I felt like they were a little creatively flat on this third album. Unlike a lot of other bands that we do, as they have an earlier and then later arc in their career, I didn't feel like they went super cheesy until that moment. And I was like, oh,
yeah,
right at the end.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of different things to say from what you did. I felt like it's still a good album.
Yeah.
Like I didn't disenjoy any of it really, except for that kind of moment that you've already discussed. But I do think a couple things different happen here. One major difference is like the vocals have just mellowed. Like they're still identifiable, but they're definitely mellowed. So it might be an easier album to get in if like those first two, the vocals are just not for you. This might be an easier step into this band. And two, I still felt like all the music was pretty identifiably Jane's Addiction.
Yes.
So credit where credit is due there. Like they have, not every band can sound super authentic with all the songs that they play. And they definitely never lost that. Whether those songs were pushing boundaries or being a little bit like more creative, like you mentioned, isn't here as much as it was in the late 80s and early 90s. It's still very very identifiable in terms of the identity.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I'll give them a little bit of credit for that, because earlier on, especially during Nothing Shocking, and I believe also during a section of Ritual de lo Habitual, Eric Avery, the bassist, was like the primary originator of the melodies.
Oh, okay.
So he was writing a lot from the bass, and then the rest of the band was filling in the sound, writing on top of that.
Sure.
So, and he's not in this album. So by the time the Great Escape Artist comes around, Eric Avery had left the band.
Okay.
He does end up coming back into the band, but after this.
Interesting.
But it's interesting that they still were able to have such a cohesive sound without one of their primary melodic songwriters.
Sure. Yeah.
So kudos to that. That's not easy to do. Cool. All right. I guess it's time. I guess you want to hear some facts, right? So one thing that I thought was a unique fact, but also something that may end up giving them some X Factor points when we go later. So this band's, obviously they broke up a bunch. We talked about that. In 1991, they had a farewell tour. And on their farewell tour, they launched the first Lollapalooza.
Oh.
Which still exists and is still Lollapalooza.
Okay.
It's probably the most iconic festival at this point. Like yearly, when you think of yearly music festivals, Lollapalooza's up there.
Yep.
Like, and they are.
Yeah, you're right.
They are their farewell tour originated at Lollapalooza in 1991.
How about that?
So I feel like that's pretty unique that You Saying Goodbye launched an iconic festival.
Yeah, that is cool.
And definitely probably adding into some points later. Highlight. I was really trying not to just make it Ritual de lo Habitual.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I did have to make it that because so many things came off of Ritual de lo Habitual. So it was ranked number 453 on Rolling Stone's magazine's list of 500 greatest albums of all time.
I think below is nothing shocking, actually.
Maybe. Mm-hmm. I mean, I wouldn't put it past, but it did perform better. And this is the one that a lot of musicians think is their peak. Which is what I thought. I think like it's considered to me the highlight when your fellow musician thinks of it as your highlight. Alice Cooper being the big one here that I'm going to quote. He said, "I can spot traces of other people on this album, us included, but that's all they are, traces. They were a really original band, and this is their peak album." Which I thought was really cool. Yeah. So there was also a book that came out about this album, El Ritual de Jane's Addiction, which was released by Argentinian journalist Fabrizio Pedrotti.
Of course.
And there's there was a book. It was certified double platinum in the U.S. It was nominated for 3 Grammys. It was definitely their highlight.
Sure.
Low light. There's a couple that I could have gone with. I did mention the multiple breakups, especially the one that happened right after their big success of the first 2 albums. That's pretty wild.
Right.
Especially for a band that then got back together so many, it's crazy. But then you find out why they broke up. And basically what happened was Eric Avery and Dave Navarro they had already kicked their drug habit.
Okay.
So they were no longer doing drugs. And Stephen Perkins and Perry Farrell were absolutely still doing drugs. And between shows, basically Avery and Navarro, who liked drugs but didn't, they were basically not doing them because they knew how addicted they were to them.
Sure.
So they were avoiding the temptation by staying in a separate section of the tour bus, which I can't remember who, but we had the same thing happen on this podcast where somebody who had done drugs and then came back into a band where they were still all drinking and doing drugs just had to sleep in his own room and separate himself from it. I can't remember who it was.
I have no idea.
But I remember talking about it. It stuck me. It was so deja vu. But that's basically what happened. And that was they really, after having that happen for a little while, were just we're out. Eric Avery basically told Navarro he was out. And Navarro was like, "Oh, me too. We're let's go." And they just they kicked off and left. So that's the kind of the big low light was the drugs. I just wanted to give you a little taste of Perry Farrell's thought process at the time. First off, every member but Stephen Perkins found themselves addicted to heroin itself. And Farrell once told the magazine Hits that he had no plans to get clean. He proclaimed heroin to be, quote, great. And when asked to weigh in on its dangers, he once quipped, "Well, so's driving. You take your chances." So
yeah, how do you even argue with that?
He did eventually change his stance and got clean and all that. But the low light was the early 90s after their big success when the band had to break up because half the band was addicted to drugs.
Yeah.
Going into Meanest and Nicest, I couldn't find Meanest, which is good because this is a big enough band that it would have been easy to find Meanest.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find anything. I also didn't find a ton of Nicest things. I looked for charities and stuff like that. What I did find was Jane's Addiction at various times through their career has supported the Grammy Foundation, Music Cares, and PETA.
Okay.
So, they've supported those organizations at one time or another.
Well, then good for them.
Yeah. And now the 6 Degrees, which is a bit of a banger.
Okay.
So this is all Eric Avery centric.
Okay.
So Eric Avery, while he was, the bassist for Jane's Addiction's first 2 albums, left the band, came back after their most recent released album in 2011, and has been with the band ever since. He is a former member of Alanis Morissette's backing band. He has been a touring and session musician for Garbage since 2005, contributing to the albums Not Your Kind of People and Strange Little Birds and No Gods, No Masters. He also unofficially joined Smashing Pumpkins in 2006 for a short spell. And in 2013, joined 9 Inch Nails in preparation for their 2013 tour.
How about that?
So Eric Avery listened to this podcast, went back in time, and joined a bunch of the bands from it.
Yeah. It's interesting and this makes sense now that you're saying that. Dave Navarro plays lead guitar on You Oughta Know.
No, that makes a lot of sense, though. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. It's so funny to me how, actually in the music scene Dave Navarro was, because for me, I knew Dave Navarro was in Red Hot Chili Peppers,
that one album.
For
one hot minute, he was in there,
and I knew he was the host of Ink Masters.
Okay,
and I was like,
I have a vague recognition of that.
Yeah, which is, if anybody who doesn't know, Ink Masters is a tattoo competition reality show where tattoo artists compete to be the best tattoo artist, the Ink Master. And I didn't watch it. So if I'm completely off on that, I'm sorry. I just knew Dave Navarro hosted it.
Sure.
And so it makes a lot more sense that he did actually, I knew he was in Jane's Addiction as an adult.
Okay.
But
he was never a baby in the band.
Shut up. This is what I know as an adult, Nick, not Dave Navarro as an adult.
Gotcha.
But I'll tell you what, man, that's all I've got for the band itself. I will tell you, I don't want to get into it because it's not band related.
Okay.
The lives of a lot of these people was upsetting.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Personal lives, a lot of upsetting stuff. If you want to peruse that at your own leisure, I could take up an hour, and I won't.
Fair enough.
But there's some sad stuff. Dave Navarro and Perry Farrell, their mothers in particular, some sad stuff happened.
Great. Well, I'm sure things will get a lot brighter with Blind Melon.
No, they won't.
Whoops.
I'll tell you real quick, though, and I'll tell, I guess, Keith or anybody else on the stream. Dave Navarro's mother was murdered. And it went unsolved for 8 years until the case went on America's Most Wanted. And then they got a tip and got the guy.
Whew.
But, yeah, his mother was murdered. And then Perry Farrell's mother killed herself when he was 3.
Well, I'll tell you, that does make the whole heroin thing a lot more seeing those ACEs scores go way up.
It was I was reading the stuff about them because I was trying to look up mean stories, and there was an article that was the tragedies of Jane's Addiction. And I was like, oh, okay. Let me look. And man, they were sad. The whole article was just so sad.
It is a bummer.
Yeah. All right.
Well,
Blind Melon. You know what I think is the worst part about the intro that we did, though? One of the main reasons we don't sing that song is because it's so high.
Yes.
And so I had the chance to pick the key of the intro. And my dumbass did it in the original key.
Yeah. I mean, you could have gone with something else.
Yeah, but what? Come on. That was too good.
Listen to our podcast, yo.
Yeah, I could have. That's also quite high, though.
Yeah, that's
Both
true.
of these bands, their main song is quite high in the range. All right. I can't believe you didn't even have to pick albums.
Yeah, didn't do it. I refused. Honestly, I was surprised there were as many as there were. I was expecting less.
Interesting to see one from 2008. Hoon sounded great on that one.
Well, he didn't make any mistakes on it. I'll tell you that.
Zero mistakes. A perfect album.
Perfect 10 out of him.
All right. How do you feel? Do you feel refreshed?
I feel great.
Ready to go?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
3, 2, 1.
Blind Melon is an American rock band formed in 1990 in Los Angeles, California. And they were active from 1990 to 1999, and then again from 2006 until the present day.
That's right.
Who would have thunk it?
Not me. Not me. I did not know about the 2006 to the present day thing until this week.
Yeah, it was new for me as well.
Yes.
We covered 3 Blind Melon albums. We started with Blind Melon, the eponymous debut. Big shout out to them. Yeah. Thank you for keeping the streak alive. And that came out in, of course, 1992. Only a couple short months after we did.
That's right. It was waiting for us.
Came out in September, and we came out in June. Then Soup. We followed it up with Soup.
That's right.
Which came out in 1995. And then For My Friends, which came out in 2008.
And here we go. It's my turn to start.
It is.
So I will just get it out of the way. No Rain is on this. It is one of the most iconic rock songs of the 90s. The opening riff, it really catches you. It's a great song. I absolutely love it. And I have, because of that, listened to this album one other time previously, before we got into covering them for the podcast. And upon re-listen, there's a lot to like here. This is a good album. Right from the opener, you can hear maybe like a little bit of Led Zeppelin influence, especially in the guitar playing. And part of that is they use intentionally outdated equipment in the studio. They were like very much about getting like the raw classic rock sound, a la some like early Rolling Stones records. So that was like their kind of big thing. Was like, let's use a bunch of old instruments and amplifiers and recording, do a recording with old stuff to try to recapture that, just like straight live punch you in the mouth rock for some of those songs. Which I think sounds great. I think it sounds really great. It serves them well on this record. But also there's a lot of like acoustic work in here, mixed in. Change was a song that I think serves as a great mix-up. And there wasn't really a miss at any point. All 13 of these songs, like it's a long record. It's almost an hour, but I enjoyed every minute of it.
Yeah. So here's the thing. When you asked me about Blind Melon, I know No Rain. So I was completely blind going into this. And I was not expecting the, like, rock of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you think of Blind Melon and you think of No Rain, it's not a rock song.
Right. It's more, well, it's like a very...
It's a rock song, but it's a very soft rock song. Mm-hmm. Like the guitar on this album was really strong,
really good.
Like the riffs on this album were straight impressive throughout. Which, kudos. I mean, that was very interesting. Roger Stevens held his own throughout this album. Yeah. Roger Stevens is also just such a classic rock sounding name. Got to give him credit,
especially because it's Rogers with an S.
Oh like God, Rogers. It is like Rogers Hornsby. Stevens. Good for him. Good for him. But yeah, obviously Shannon Hoon sings the crap out of it. His voice is so effortless in that high register, which makes it sound like, even as the songs are much more hardcore than I expected them to be.
Mm-hmm.
Hardcore is not the correct word, but
just a little heavier.
A little heavier than I thought.
Hard rock sometimes.
He just makes it sound so like he's just sitting there calmly singing, and it's a very effortless sound. And I really enjoyed listening to this album. Honestly, this might have been my favorite album of the week.
Yeah, it's definitely in contention. And I think we basically liked all the albums thus far.
Oh, I liked all 4 of the albums we've listened to so far. But this album just felt complete in a really strong way. And I'll move on to Soup. Take us into some Soup. And so now I was a little more aware of the blind melon of it all, the blind melon sound, in a way that I wasn't in the first album. And I thought this album, once again, was very strong. I really thought that they built on themselves really well. I thought that they executed at a high level. I think you're still getting some really good riffs from Roger Stevens on the guitar and the piano on this. I thought he did really well on both of them. I think Shannon Hoon, once again, busts out some really elegant, effortless, high-sounding vocals.
Yeah.
And I'll say that the first album felt a little bit more complete to me, but this album still was really good to listen to.
Yeah, I really liked this a lot as well. I mean, it was interesting and weird that like unlisted track Hello Goodbye, that's like the first 50 seconds into the opener Galaxy. Like, it's just like, this is a band that is super interested in experimentation, in finding new sounds and creating new types of songs. They definitely, like, very much like Jane's Addiction, I think they're actually a really good comp, because they're 2 bands who I think from their first albums found a unique sound that felt very authentic to them. Like, there's a Jane's Addiction sound, there's a Blind Melon sound, and then they kept it up with a really strong follow-up that, had me pretty much caught right from the beginning. The song Skinned, I thought, was really cool. It was a song about Ed Gein, Texas Chainsaw Massacre guy. But the way that they were using like a acoustic guitar and like a kazoo or something, it sounded sort of like the I Feel Like I'm Fixing to Die Rag by Country Joe and the Fish in terms of instrumentation, and also in terms of it's almost like kind of a silly sounding song, and then you listen to it and you're like, oh, this is really dark. This is really dark for something so silly sounding.
My favorite type of music.
Yeah,
is music that tricks you like that. It's one of the main reasons you and I both love folk music, like Phil Oak style folk music, where it sounds super simple and la da 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 da, and then you listen to the lyrics and you're like, oh, you're being mean to people. Like you're talking about real things. I love that. One thing that I just want to point out before you go into For My Friends, the technology to get the hidden track. I fucking love when people do stuff like this. So obviously this came out in the era of CD, and the initial before Hello Goodbye, there is a hidden like kind of overture to the album, and the way you get that is as soon as track 1 starts, you pause and you rewind to get to the pre-gap of the CD where there's not supposed to be recorded stuff.
Interesting.
And you rewind to that, and then it'll play the hidden overture.
Oh, that's so cool.
That's such a cool thing.
Yeah. All right. That's like a cool, like, you get word of mouth going and around about that. And that, I like that. I do want to say one thing, because it's going to tie these 2 albums together. The other song I wanted to highlight from Soup is Mouthful of Cavities, which had some really cool backing vocals from a singer named Jenna Krause, who was just like a fan of the band who kept bugging them to let her come up and sing with them until they're like, all right. And then it's like, oh, she's really good.
Yeah.
So they brought her in for a song. And I believe she's also on one of the songs For My Friends as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I remember hearing her voice somewhere in there. But whose voice you don't hear in For My Friends is, of course, Shannon Hoon, who has passed away very shortly after the Soup Tour commenced. So he has not been with the band. Obviously, they were not together for all that time, but then they got back together and started working on some new music. And they still are. Like there has been talks of a new Blind Melon album for like years that hasn't yet surfaced. So it is worth keeping your eye out for. And musically, here's the thing. They still have Roger Stevens, and he's still writing really great guitar parts. And I don't think that they've missed a beat in terms of their songwriting. I think they are still identifiably Blind Melon, and it's still in a really good way. I think the replacement vocalist they got gelled really, really nicely with the rest of the group. I really didn't even feel like there was a drop off in quality from their 90s material here. Like I felt like the songs were really well written. Like I was just as interested in this album as I was in the first two. So like nice work, Blind Melon.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on a lot of that. I think everything you said about Roger Stevens, still writing at a high level. I mean, technically they credited this the writing as like everyone from Blind Melon as one wrote everything, but the guitar licks are the part that really stuck out to me, as they have been throughout. Travis Warren, the new lead singer, this is not his fault at all. I thought he had a very good voice, and I thought he fit very well. Shannon Hoon had one quality of his voice that I mentioned already a bunch of times. It just sounded effortless in that high range. And Travis Warren does not sound effortless in that high range. It sounds much more, he has the range, and it doesn't sound like he's straining.
It's not bad at all.
It sounds like 95% of the people on earth who sing in that range, who can sing in that range.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're working at it. There's nothing wrong with that. When I get up there, it sounds like I'm working at it. But one of the reasons I don't love to do when we covered No Rain for a while is because I can't do that either.
Yeah.
And my favorite part about the way Shannon Hoon sounds on it is that he's singing something so difficult and it sounds so easy.
Yeah.
So that quality's not there for this album, which is maybe a nitpick to some. Maybe you won't even notice it for some other ones. For me, like it sucked to not have that. But the rest of it, and even Travis Warren's voice, like it was all, everything you said was right. It still gelled very well. It was still very Blind Melon sounding, even though it was a lot of years since, a big gap between the albums. A really good showing, and it didn't feel stale.
No.
And that was a big deal too, because more often than not, when something like this happens where we have a big gap, it comes out and it sounds stale. And I did not experience that here.
Absolutely. So I guess the time has come to talk about Blind Melon a little bit more. And I'm going to start with their highlight, which, I didn't want to do what you did and say that like Blind Melon was their highlight and No Rain. But it's also really hard not to do that because it was a 4 times platinum album. No Rain continues to be a really popular tune. And also went silver in the UK and gold in Australia and was number 1 in the US.
So but also sold a lot of albums in the US and then like 12 albums between the UK.
I think it's Australia. 200K for a silver single in the UK.
I know.
So a lot.
I like to joke that the numbers for those are less. They matter. Yeah. They're just less.
Yes. But here's the thing. So I could have gone with that, and I'll mention it. But here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say when they played Woodstock 94, that was the highlight of their careers.
Okay.
Specifically for Shannon Hoon, who performed Woodstock 94 and then I think was like interviewed for MTV afterwards while clearly tripping on acid and wearing his girlfriend's dress.
Wait.
Shannon Hoon absolutely tripping out of his mind, wearing a white dress, perform that on stage. So that was their highlight, I'm going to say. And of course, that ties into their low light, which is also about Shannon Hoon and his untimely death on the Soup Tour. You're looking at pictures of this right now?
Yeah, you can't talk about this right now. I'm looking at the pictures.
I'm so
oh
sorry.
My God. That's
actually
iconic.
Didn't look at any of the pictures. I only read about it.
Nick, you have to look at these pictures.
Right. I will.
Oh, he's wearing he's wearing like clips in his hair and everything.
You got
incredible.
But unfortunately, as that performance may or may not indicate, Shannon Hoon did in fact have a drug problem. Particularly cocaine seemed to be his big problem drug. And when they left to go on the Soup Tour, his drug counselor was basically like, no, don't do this. It's a really, really bad idea. Like he's not ready for that. And so the band brought a drug counselor on tour with them. And then shortly thereafter were dismissed them. Because I guess they were like, okay, don't need them. Everything seems to be going just fine. And it was only just a few weeks into the tour that Hoon was found dead of a cocaine overdose, a heart attack induced by a cocaine overdose at age 28.
That's terrible.
Yep.
I mean, seriously, dude. And again, I mean, I don't know the health history of Shannon Hoon.
Yeah.
But what I do know is he, in every picture I've seen of him, looks like a reasonably fit mid-20s, mid to late 20-year-old man. How much cocaine do you have to do
to induce
a heart attack in like a fully otherwise healthy adult man in their 20s?
I would imagine a lot.
That's sad, man. That's so sad.
Yeah. And out of this actually comes my nice thing. So after Hoon's passing, the band decided to put together an album, which we didn't cover this week because it's not an official studio release. But it's a compilation of unreleased and unfinished tracks and some covers. It was called Nico after one of Shannon Hoon's children. And the profits of that album all went to a program that would help musicians with drug and alcohol rehab. So
that's really
good for
nice.
them for that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there is also a meanest thing. And unfortunately, it was also committed by Shannon Hoon, who in 1993, playing up in Canada somewhere, he was arrested for indecent exposure because he got undressed on stage and urinated on a fan.
Okay.
I don't know if you're getting a picture of who this guy was at all from the stories that I'm telling. But that's, I mean, and there you go.
I will not laugh at that because I'm sure that was very traumatic for someone.
Yes, I'm sure that it was. Okay. 6 Degrees. They open for a lot of big artists in their very short time period of touring and success, including a couple that we have covered, Lenny Kravitz, as well as Neil Young. Of course, when they played at Woodstock 94, they played with a lot of other groups that we've covered. But also, they recorded a tune for an album called Encomium, which was a tribute to Led Zeppelin. They recorded a cover of Out on the Tiles. Also appearing on this Led Zeppelin cover album was Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin, who did a duet of Down by the Seaside with Tori Amos. But also Stone Temple Pilots doing a cover of Dancing Days, Sheryl Crow doing a cover of Dire Maker, Hootie and the Blowfish doing a cover of Hey, Hey, What Can I Do, and 4 Non-Blondes doing Misty Mountain Hop, featuring Dave Navarro on guitar.
Whoa!
So
that was a good one,
right? We got a lot for the price of one right in there.
I like that we both had a little extra.
It's good.
6 Degrees this week.
Yeah. Here's the unique thing, and I had trouble deciding what was unique about Blind Melon. And they had a very successful record, I will tell you that. However, the most successful record that Shannon Hoon ever sang on came out before a single Blind Melon album had ever even come out. Because Shannon Hoon's sister was friends with Axl Rose in high school, who allowed Hoon to come to the Use Your Illusion sessions, and he sang backing vocals on a few tunes on Use Your Illusions Volume 1 and 2, which have gone like 7 times platinum or something.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So I'm going to say the fact that his highest selling ever album that he sang on was actually not a Blind Melon album at all. And it came out before Blind Melon even released a single record.
That's incredible. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, right? What are the odds?
I guess it's a small world.
Indeed. Amongst these, I guess that's the whole point of the 6 Degrees segment.
Yeah. Everyone is connected in some way.
That's very true.
So it's very interesting.
Okay.
All right, let's grade them.
Let's do it. All right, well, we'll start with Jane's Addiction because we started there. I think there's some cultural impact here. I think there's definitely name recognition that's really held on their importance to like the direction of rock music as the 80s were, and in this transition period between hair metal and grunge, but also kind of finding a separate alternative rock lane in that area too.
Yeah.
Definitely some influence to be had there. And names like Navarro's are pretty huge.
Dave Navarro is a big portion of their cultural impact as well. I think just their contribution to the music scene in general, like some of the people that count themselves as directly influenced by Jane's Addiction, Tool, Korn, Smashing Pumpkins, Limp Bizkit, sadly, Candlebox, Incubus, System of a Down, like there's a ton of them.
Sure.
So a lot of these bands that kind of grew into this alt rock, hard rock scene directly are like, hey, I was influenced by, Jane's Addiction.
Sure.
Nick Oliveri, the bassist for Queens of the Stone Age, came out and said that Eric Avery like directly influenced him and was his inspiration for learning that he could also write songs from the bass, which is why I mentioned that earlier.
Sure.
Is like, so there's a lot of musical influence as well from Jane's Addiction. And then you do have like the big name, with Dave Navarro going on to a pretty prominent career in other bands and also on television. I think there's a good amount of points here.
Sure. How many? You tell me what you're thinking.
I mean, I'm thinking this is a band that's probably above average.
Okay.
I'm not saying they're in the 5s to me.
I think so too.
Because you're not getting like they're not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They don't have like the Grammy Hall of Fame. They don't have those floors that kind of build them higher.
But I also don't think it's out of the question.
No.
Like if in another 10 years there's more discussion or like music kind of makes us a resurgence towards like guitar driven at some point or something like that becomes in vogue again, I could definitely see them being looked upon.
Sure.
As like a Velvet Underground type group where super influential, but didn't move a lot of units at their time.
Yeah. I mean, well, they did have 2 albums that went platinum.
Right. They were more popular than that. Like when they were coming up, but you know what I'm trying to say.
I know exactly what you're trying to say. Growing. Yeah. I'm thinking they're probably in like the 5.5 range.
Yeah. That works for me. Blind Melon. I don't know what to say besides, I mean, probably the thing most famous about them other than No Rain is Shannon Hoon dying young, or they actually recorded a cover of 3 is a Magic Number from Schoolhouse Rock that has been used in a bunch of movies like Never Been Kissed and Slackers and You, Me and Dupree.
So a 10?
So a 10, I think, would be appropriate.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. I'm not arguing them anywhere other than like maybe one something.
Let's build their number.
Okay.
They're getting 1 for No Rain.
Yeah.
Okay. Boom. That's done. What else? What else would you give them? Shannon Hoon's death? That would probably be an X factor.
Be an X factor.
So I wouldn't put it here. In terms of you know, Woodstock 94, maybe like playing a little
Maybe,
bit
yeah. I
there.
mean, they also were on the Rolling Stones Voodoo Lounge tour too. And
Yeah.
like they've toured with a lot of other groups. They've had like a lot of other big connections.
Yeah.
I, but I don't know. Other than that, like you got maybe the their Schoolhouse Rock cover, and just for the fact that it's been used in several film soundtracks that were like
Films, yeah,
fairly
that's
popular-ish
and
still.
so has No Rain.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
I mean
in
that song's
popular culture,
remarkably huge.
yeah, in
And
popular
you
culture,
know
it's
what?
been a
You know
lot of
what?
other places.
And I don't know if this goes here or if this is something else for X Factor, but the little dancing girl in the Bumblebee outfit is one of the most iconic music videos of the decade for sure, if not all time.
Yeah, no, that's
Like
a tough
the
fight.
little girl tap dancing in her Bumblebee outfit is
That's part of the
like if
impact
you
for sure.
asked me to name what I thought, like what are some of the all time great music videos, it would be one of the very first ones that I thought of.
I'm with you on that. You know what the first one that jumped into my head was?
Go ahead. I'll tell you
Here
the
We Go
number.
Again by OK Go with
Oh,
the treadmills.
okay. See, I think of three came to my mind right away. The
Okay.
little girl dancing for
Yeah,
No Rain, um, Jamiroquai, Virtual Insanity, and the
sure.
Moving Furniture, and You Get What You Give. Um, in like the mall, I'm
Oh,
saying
yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
bustling '90s mall going
Yeah,
on around them. Um,
a relic.
I know, right? But
A
like when I
relic.
think of iconic music videos, those are some of the ones that jump into my head.
Yeah. That should be that's oh, we should ask people. We should review like people's popular pick for like the most iconic
Sure,
music video.
that would be
And
interesting.
we just watch them
I love it.
and then give our opinions, maybe rank them. It'd be fun.
Sure. But anyway, I mean, I'm still like one, but maybe one
Yeah,
something
like
depending on
one
what you
something
want.
here. Maybe like a 1-4.
Sure.
I feel like they're a little bit above a
Yeah.
one.
Okay. So the next score and then a few later on, they're going to be hampered by the album releases. So Jane's Addiction, 4 albums, 3.4. Blind Melon, 3 albums, 2.5. Just know that a couple of our scores are going to start from those floors.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate. So let's just start with Jane's Addiction.
Sure.
As we did. So yeah, 4 albums. They're starting from a 3-4. They do have 2 albums that went platinum. One went double platinum.
Right. So they're going to get a little
So
extra
they're
bump
going to
on
get a
top of that.
little extra.
Probably like a 3-6 ish.
Yeah, let's start from a 3-6.
And then we can assign them some points ourselves.
Yeah, and I'm going to give them a 0.2. I was impressed throughout, even in their last album where I felt like they were a little more creatively flat. You'll notice that I had nothing bad to say about it. It just didn't feel quite as inspired.
Sure.
But it certainly didn't feel creatively dead either.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I'm giving them the same score.
Cool.
So, moving on to Blind Melon, 2.5. Their first album did, in fact, go 4 times platinum. So,
yeah, so they're also getting some here.
They're also probably getting roughly the same amount.
Yeah.
Added on, so an extra 0.2. And then it's up to us to score them. I'll go first this time. And I'm going to give them a 0.3. I think this is a band that could had they had like a 6-7 album career of the quality that they were at, we could be talking about sneaking a 0.4 out of me. You know, honestly,
Sure.
if they had that many albums, I would probably be going and listening to all of them.
Yeah, and I'm also going to give them a 0.3. A 0.1 for each album. I thought each album impressed me. And I thought they did a really good job of bouncing back from the death of their lead singer. It's not easy to do. And I think they did it well.
Yeah, I think it's funny just because I feel like there's so many things about these two bands are comparable, and I'm going into instrumental talent feeling very similarly. Like I think they're really above average, and especially unique vocals, really good guitar playing, staple of both of these groups. I'm definitely above average. I'm definitely probably talking about like a 6-ish for each one of these groups.
Yeah, I would agree with you. We'll start with Jane's Addiction. I think in the 6 range, maybe 6, 6, 1. I think is a good spot for them. I think us as a group here, Perry Farrell's voice is so divisive that
Sure.
some people will want higher and some people will want lower. And I'm trying to kind of thread that needle.
Yeah.
Of I'm not going to take any points away for people's opinion on his vocal. I think his vocal fits the sound well. And so I think right at a 6.61, I like it.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with the 6.
Cool.
And then Blind Melon. I can't go lower.
No, and here's the thing. I think Blind Melon does two of the main staples better. I think Hoon is a better singer.
Sure, yeah.
And again, it's that effortless quality in his high register. And also, I think Roger Stevens.
I do like.
I really think his
he
guitar
grabbed me a little
playing,
bit more.
Yeah, is
like I like Navarro very much.
Yeah,
but I felt like more songs the guitar reached out and grabbed me with Blind Melon.
I would agree. I think the riffs were more engaging. It's a close.
I'm gonna give them like a 6.2.
Here. Yeah, they're so close. It's like an edging out.
Yeah. And then moving into songwriting, and like I made all these comps and compliments of their both group songwritings as we went through. Like they both were doing something in the alternative rock lane different from what was popular at the time, in a way that was identifiably their own, where each song I think was really well constructed. I think both of these groups, had they had 6 or more albums, would definitely be above average. Like for sure, like we could be talking about this as being potentially their best category, up there with their instrumental talent for both groups. So we're going to be adding points here.
For sure.
Just no matter how much.
Start with Jane's Addiction again. I think the two big qualifiers for me in terms of adding points, one, the writing here was sort of trailblazing this new genre, this alternative rock genre. And I think that's very important because they were managing to write a very unique sound to themselves, pulling in a bunch of other influences and making like this new flavor of music, which is not something that is easy to do correctly.
No, it's not easy to do at all.
It's not easy to do at all, but it's definitely not easy to do and have it sound
really good,
so consistent as well. As in, like, Jane's Addiction sounds like this, and I can listen to other alt rock bands and hear Jane's Addiction's influence on them.
Sure,
but Jane's Addiction still sounds like Jane's Addiction. I think they do that really well. I also think they're not afraid to experiment with like the horn section and then with strings on the next album, with with different sounds, like bringing that heavy alt rock sound, and then even their acoustics still have a bit of weight to them. I was very impressed by the songwriting on by Jane's
I was
Addiction.
too. Yeah, I could see us bumping them a good bit here.
Yeah, I mean they're starting at a 3-4. I would be fine bumping them to a 5.
I was thinking exactly the same thing.
Yeah, this is a group that if they
that would have put them in like the 7s-ish if they had the
easy,
and that's pretty good for us. And I think Blind Melon is a very similar story, but we're talking about half of the albums instead of 2/3 of the albums.
Yes.
In our calculation, but I think that if anything, they were just like a little bit catchier of writers, if less innovative, but still pretty unique sounding as a group, with great individually constructed songs. So, and like definitely experiments, because that second album had some weird stuff in it. You get that, like, when I can compare a song on your album to Feel Like I'm Fixing to Die Rag, but also say like sometimes your guitar sounds like Led Zeppelin inspired, like that's a lot of range.
I think they have a lot of similar strengths. It's always interesting when we do an episode like this where the parallels really line up for two
And
bands
you
that
wouldn't
couldn't
expect it.
sound more
Yeah.
different.
Right, I would not have thought that,
Right.
like, listening to the 3 out like, oh my god, there is so much that these bands have in common, from drug problems to minimal albums to their style of writing to
Yeah.
their specific skills. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm bumping them a full point here, if not a little bit more. Like, I think this is another band, like, we would probably be talking in the 6 to 7 range,
Yeah.
if they were in their entirety, so I'm gonna put them
So
at
if we're
about
looking at a 7, you cut it in half,
3.5.
3.5.
All right,
I
and then
dig it.
moving on to poetic talent.
This one for me was the more interesting one, I think, because you mentioned for Blind Melon, and Jane's Addiction also has this quality of the sound, the songs and the songwriting is so interesting. Maybe you don't even listen to the lyrics at first, and when you listen to the lyrics, you hear a lot of pain. Like Perry Farrell really writes his pain well, and really writes like it's one of the things that I really like because, and you'll know this too. We covered enough grunge. When you're bullshitting pain, it's so obvious that you're doing it. And so many artists in that scene do it.
Yeah.
In that alt rock scene, like, you know, we covered what Daughtry and like artists like that. And their lyrics just didn't feel authentic. It felt like they know what the genre is supposed to sound like, and so they make it sound like that. Well, this is one of the groups that made this genre sound like that. So the pain feels and sounds real, and I thought it was strong. I wouldn't call it like the top shelf of lyrics that we've covered, but if this was out, let's say this was a 6-album band, I'd probably be looking to give them like a 6.
Okay, fair enough.
And so this is a 4-album
so
band.
It's a 4.
So it's a 4.
Okay. Poetic talent for Blind Melon. I have no complaints here.
No, none at all.
I mean, like, I didn't memorize all the lyrics as we were going through, so a lot of times I was more focused on the songwriting. But I liked the lyrics of theirs that I know, or when I would stop to pay attention to a song that I thought was really interesting. They didn't have any moments that were like cringing it up in any way.
No, I think that they're a band that's a little bit more deceptive than Jane's Addiction, because I think a lot of it has to do with Shanahan's voice and just how, like, no matter what he's singing, it kind of just sounds like he's like, just like sitting by a campfire, just like having the time of his life. But the lyrics do get like a little darker on some of these, and there's definitely pain in there. It's maybe just a little bit less like cutting, and maybe there's a little bit more forced positivity on some of the songs. Like when you listen to No Rain, there's not a ton of lyrical depth to No Rain.
Right.
And that's okay. But it definitely it's a little bit less than I would want. So this is a group where if they were a 6-album band, I'd probably be putting them in like the 5, 4, 5, 5 range.
Sure.
Definitely above average, but they're not lyrical masters.
Sure. So 2-7 it is.
Yeah.
And we go into X Factor, which I think we might be having a little bit for both artists here.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, for Jane's Addiction, the big one for me is the kind of pioneering of alternative rock.
Sure.
So that's a big deal. What we want to give to that is,
obviously that's like a super varied. Yeah, right. Well, it's a sub, but it's like there are a lot of different artists who are going to be brought in as like alternative rock pioneers. So
I completely agree. So
it's not the same thing as giving points to Chuck Berry and Fats Domino.
No. So we gave them 2 points for that.
Yeah, I think we're looking at like a point something.
Yeah, I mean maybe like a 0.7.
Sure.
you're getting a little more than half a point, not a full point because it's a subgenre.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, 0.7 I think is a good score, and I
Sure.
don't have anything else to add for them.
Okay. Yeah, and then for Blind Melon, I mean, it comes down to the two things that we mentioned before: the tragic premature death, and I think one of the most iconic music
Oh,
videos of the 90s.
I'm dumb. I'm dumb. We need to give more points to Jane's Addiction,
Okay.
Lollapalooza. I
Oh
mentioned it
yeah.
earlier, and then I completely forgot about it. Like they started one of the biggest music festivals of all time.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
So I I don't know what you want to give for that. That might be worth a full point for me.
Okay.
Like it's a big festival. It's still huge.
Sure. I have no problem with that. So what are we going to give to Blind Melon then?
Well, we've typically given a point for, I believe, for
For a
iconic
death.
untimely
Okay.
deaths, and then the other things as well. I'm not sure
And
what number
he
you're.
only missed the 27 club by less than a month.
So close.
Yeah.
I wish he was looking to hit the 97 club instead of
That
the
would
27
be
club, but
excellent. I would agree. I would
see,
prefer more
it's
music.
so interesting because like, I and this is gonna sound like callous, and I don't mean it
Hmm.
to. Of somebody like Shannon Hoon, like the person he was, and for his friends and family, like obviously they wish he was around for
Oh, absolutely.
personal reasons. For someone like me, other than the fact that I don't like when people die because that's
Yeah.
awful, I would love to hear how his voice matured.
Yeah, it would be interesting.
Like it's the same when we just did Amy Winehouse. Like it was a similar thing.
Hmm.
Like how her voice would continue to age with her.
Sure.
Like what would his voice sound like right now? It sounded so effortless in those high ranges.
Hmm.
Would he still have that effortless quality? Would it sound more like like it's just stuff like that, man. It just sucks that like
Yeah,
stupid shit like drugs and like addiction, like it's sad, man.
it is.
Addiction is such a disease and it's just sad. But
It is.
regardless, we're giving a point for Shannon Hoon, and then some other things that you had mentioned for adding other points in, right?
Yeah, just the music video.
Yeah, the music video. So maybe like a 1.1, 1.2.
1.2.
Cool.
And I've got final scores.
All right, I'm ready.
And winning this week's matchup is Jane's Addiction with a 26.2. That extra album definitely helps.
Yeah, for sure.
And then our runners up this week, who definitely didn't lose because they were awesome, is Blind Melon.
Yeah, I'm not going to play the trombone.
Yeah, no. They got an 18.3, a group that with 6 albums definitely would have been competing with Jane's Addiction, up in at least the mid-20s for us, I think.
Well, it's interesting. So, like, theoretically, right, the way that we try to do the score
Mhm.
for at least half the categories, they would have double. So they're going
Yeah.
from an 18 to like almost a 30 with 6 albums.
Yep.
Maybe even in the not quite a 36, which would be double,
Sure.
but because not every category is double.
Yeah, no, but they would have
But they could have
gotten
been
a
up in
bit
the
more.
30 range, and then Jane's Addiction, if they had 2 more albums, could be up in the mid 30-ish range almost.
Yep.
It's crazy to think about, man.
You're
And
absolutely right.
I think well-deserved scores. A 26 with
Yeah.
only 4 albums is impressive.
Yeah, definitely. It was a good week. It was
a very good
a
week.
really nice week. I appreciated it.
Truly a week that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
Which I think are my favorite kinds of weeks. Like there are some weeks when we both know going in that we're going to have a good week of listening,
Yeah.
and those weeks are fun. But there's something about a week where I don't know what I'm expecting. I could either be expecting great things or terrible things, and I have no preference and no knowledge, and then I'm just suitably impressed by 6 good albums.
Yeah.
There's something fun about that.
For sure. Okay. Next week, I had to pull up our season doc because I'm looking at these 2 artists who are coming up next week, and I'm like, what the hell is the theme? What was I even thinking writing this down?
I love that.
And so I think I will be surprised at some point, because the episode next week is who is in that band?
Oh no.
So okay, I have piqued my own curiosity.
Good. That's important. It's important
It
to pique your own curiosity sometimes, especially since you make the schedule.
Exactly. Exactly.
Awesome. Well, hey, we did it, Nick. We did it once again.
Thank
we
goodness.
Continued our quest. Thank you all for hanging out with us. It's been a blast as always. Make sure you're tuning in. Make sure you're liking where you can like, commenting where you can comment. And once again, please tell one other person we exist.
Just one.
Just one.
Just one.
But anyway, while you're doing that, hopefully there's no rain in your life. And you have a great day.
Excellent.
And fuck heroin.
Yeah, agreed.
And I guess cocaine, because that's the one that actually killed someone in this episode.
That's a great point.
Sad.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Google Shannon Hoon Woodstock dress, please.
Oh, yeah.
I need it's very, very perfect. It's the clips in the hair for me.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. He's going all in there.
It's the the eyeshadow, the eyeliner, the clips in the hair, just
yeah. I mean, he's living life without fear.
Yeah,
he's putting 5 carrots in his baby girl's ear. Oh, weird.
What?
Huh. Oh, I'm just trying to figure out what the fuck I was talking about. So I'm just looking up the members of these different groups.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
You're being so ominous right now.
Yeah, I'm just like... I'm still like not 100% sure what I was talking about. I must have been doing a lot of digging. Okay. So there are a lot of connections that could be made. But I had no idea what I was talking about.
Yeah. I mean, there's only one person in this first band that I am surprised is in another band.
Okay, which one are you looking at first?
Titan. To tighten something.
Gotcha.
And if you look at...
Okay.
I mean...
I see... Oh, my goodness. I don't know how this is possible. The other one, Kenny Pickett was the lead singer in that band in 1966 through 1968 and also the mid-'80s to 97. And I don't think he was alive.
I'm telling you right now, Nick. I'm telling you right now, if you did it because one of the people in this other band is Steve Smith, and you just were like, they're football players.
No, because the other band definitively has like a couple of guys from other, like 2 guys who were big parts of bands that we have covered. We're in that other group.
I'll believe you.
And I must have been like just searching all over for a band that was in the that I can make any sort of connections to.
Oh my god. Good.
Because like several of them played with other groups in some capacity.
Yeah, I mean, I know who you're talking about for for the band that I mentioned.
Okay.
I mean, because he was in a band that you like and I like.
Oh, interesting. I can't figure out who it is then.
So like the cold stuff that falls down when wintertime happens?
Yes, I do.
That guy.
Gotcha. Okay, that must be who I was talking about. Yeah, okay.
And I mean the other guy, this one was also
And then a couple other were just like playing with a bunch of other people. But
yeah, really, yeah. There's a few. There's a guy that's still in it that's in the Roots that I recognize.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah, not a group that you would consider.
I don't associate the Roots with that band.
Correct.
Which one would you like, by the way?
Well, I mean, I was already looking at him. I'll take that one.
You got it.
Haven't even looked at the other one yet. So
when you do, you'll see that the members, two of the former members, were like pretty prominent members of other groups that we've covered.
Interesting. Let's see. Let's see if I believe you. I believe you.
Mm-hmm.
I get it.
Yeah.
Although Kenny Pickett.
Penny Kickett.
Penny Kickett.
Just kick it.
All right.
This will be an interesting rest of our season.
Stop. Don't look at it. Don't look at the rest of the season.
I'm looking at it. I can see for sure one other episode I'm going to enjoy.
Yeah, so can I. Let's see. I'm assuming you mean number 18.
Yes.
I think we'll like 19. I think 19 will be surprising.
You might be right. I think 20 has some potential.
20 has some potential.
21
is going to have one song each.
Yeah. I'm looking ahead to season 7.5. And even there, I can find like 2 or 3 bands with potential, I think.
I forgot what you had for the season finale.
God, I hate past Nick.
I'll tell you what, seriously though, this is not me speaking from knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
From what I've heard in snippets, the most recent album for the younger artist in the finale may be good.
Okay.
From what I've heard in small snippets.
Sure.
It's the only hope we have.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a lot of other reasons for hope.
What I'm mad about is there's going to be one song from that season finale that will be stuck in my head for like a year. Every time I listen to it, it's stuck in my head for a long time.
Interesting. 3 just came into my head and got stuck there immediately.
Oh, I'm not talking about from her.
Oh, okay.
The song from him.
Yeah, I have still to this day managed to have never listened to it. So,
newsflash, buddy, that's not happening
coming
anymore.
To an end.
That's coming to a strong end.
Great. Sir, what on earth are you doing?
I'm playing the kazoo. It's the kazoo. It's the didgeridoo.
The didgeridoo. Love a good didgeridoo.
All right.
Okay.
Nick,
I just got to go.
It's that time. I will talk to you. I don't know if we're planning on. We should figure out if we're planning on meeting before the gig on Saturday.
Is a fair point to make.
Yeah, we should just figure that out. Since we're going 2 hours with no break, I want to like not sing.
Yeah,
if we're getting together, but I'm not against getting together either.
That seems so.
That was that's all I got.
Very good.
Also, I don't think I didn't see if you responded at all to that potential music video recording thing Alex said.
Okay, I was waiting to find out.
Yeah, he didn't say anything. He didn't say anything about that, but
okay.
I didn't know how possible that would be for you most days with your work schedule.
I mean, I'd have to take time off.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the crux of it for me as well. Since I'm doing, my plan is to do the mountain vacation with my family,
right?
Still, because I want to get as many of them in as I can with my grandpa, and then I want to take 5 days off for the wedding,
right?
So that's 10 days.
That's already a lot of days.
So I have like 4 or 5 days to really work with otherwise. So I'm trying to avoid using them for stuff if I can help it. But we'll see. I mean,
we shall
see. I just was I didn't know what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, I mean, if it's the only way, we'll see what I can do, I suppose.
Yeah,
but I don't like taking time off work.
I mean,
I took a half day already after I died.
It's true.
It was like,
I'll be honest too, like just thinking about it, I don't think that's enough time. Like, I understand we're just filming a music video and it's a 4-minute song maybe.
But it requires us to set up.
We're going to be recording, but we're not just playing through the song once. Like we're looking at like 3 or 4 different angles at least. We have to have.
Are we even actually playing?
Well, we're gonna have to look like we're playing.
Yeah, right.
But so like we're gonna have to probably like play through the song all the way through once, where like and then with you really getting into it, then we're gonna probably have to do like individual shots, and then we're gonna have to do the shots of us as the judges. So like I feel like we might be recording for 2 hours, and then set up and breakdown. It's probably like a 5-hour shoot. Like the little experience I have with like video recording, it takes way longer than you think.
Great.
Well, that's why like with having a hard 2-hour cutoff time frame, that feels like a setting us up for failure. Which I mean, I get that they're a school, they got a limited time, and I totally get that. But like the more that I was thinking about it, I'm like, I don't think we'll get what we need. But not with just having one, one camera.
Yeah.
So just something to keep in mind. We'll have to figure it out. I mean, if we got to figure, if we got to shoot it somewhere else where we can have more time, that might be the play.
Yeah.
We could always, if we could, it might be a good idea if we planned on doing it at Naked, doing it on a day when we play there. And then just like getting there early in the morning time, doing it, setting our shit up, and then all we got to do is like move our shit to the side under the stairs, then go like live our day for like 5 or 6 hours, and then come back and it's all already in there. We just got to move it back out. It's not all loaded. Might be something to think about. I know that's not the ideal space.
Yeah.
For the theme.
Sure.
But really beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah.
So, But whatever happens, we'll make it work. That's the part.
We will.
All right. It's way past your bedtime, buddy.
Yes.
Go immediately sleep. Good night.
Yes, sir.
Cool. All right, peeps. Thanks for hanging out as always. What can I say except I'll talk to y'all next time.